Hi guys, welcome to episode 48 of the Knitting Expat Podcast. Welcome, my name is Mina, and today is Wednesday the 10th of February. Sorry about that, I think this is like the first time I'm actually speaking today, so it's, my voice hasn't quite gotten there yet. Welcome. Like I said, my name is Mina. I'm coming to you today from Bahrain, where I live with my husband and our 2 cats. And so welcome. You can find me online as Mina86 on Ravelry. You can find me on Instagram as Mina Phillip. And you can find show notes for this podcast and all previous episodes at knittingexpat.wordpress.com. You can find the group on Ravelry is the Knitting Expat Podcast group. And I'm pretty sure I've covered everything. Oh, I sell project bags on Etsy as Mina Makes, but there's nothing in the shop at the moment. The shop's on vacation mode until it gets restocked, which will hopefully be very soon. Honestly, you guys I don't even know where to begin. You guys seriously just amaze me every single week. I've appreciated everyone's comments, everyone's messages. I've been trying to keep up with getting back to everybody, and so far I think I'm kind of managing to keep on top of it. I have a couple of messages I still need to reply to. But honestly, you guys are just incredible. And when was it I noticed it? I think it was yesterday I noticed that I've now got over 4,000 subscribers on YouTube, which is insane. It is insane. Thank you so much, you guys. I don't even know where to begin. I was so surprised. I don't have anything prepared. I was thinking, it'd be quite cool if I got to 4,000 subscribers at my 1-year podiversary mark, because then I could do a combined giveaway. But no, you guys jumped the gun, and I'm there now a month before my 1-year podiversary, so I was completely unprepared for it. Wasn't expecting it at all. So I don't have anything prepared for that this week, just because I was so surprised. But I will be doing a giveaway of some sort, and I'll probably announce that next week for the 4,000 subscriber giveaway, because I do it for every sort of big milestone, as it were. I've done it so far, and I'd like to keep up with that. So yeah, I was just a little bit shell-shocked by that, because I really was not expecting it, and just really want to say thank you to everybody, because it really means so much to me that you guys take the time to sit down and join me every week. It's really not the most well-produced podcast, or I don't have a co-host or anything, so there's none of that banter going on. But so it really touches me that you guys are willing to sit through sometimes what is a ridiculously long podcast each week with me, and I really appreciate it that you do that. Right. So the next thing on my introduction section list, as it were, that I have to say, was I wanted to give a quick little shout out to Charlotte. Hi, Charlotte. Charlotte is, if you guys remember last week, I mentioned Sarah and Adrian's podcast, The Reluctant Sisters, and Charlotte is their niece. And Sarah was messaging me, and she was saying that Charlotte's mum, so Sarah's sister, watches the podcast on their TV, and they also use their TV for Skype. So Charlotte walks past the TV and says hello to me, and so she wonders why I don't answer her. So hello, Charlotte. So that was the little hello I said I would do, and she sounds really sweet. I've seen some pictures of her, and she's pretty adorable. And and the last thing that I wanted to do before we move on is the pattern giveaway. So last week I mentioned that I was sent a really lovely drawstring project bag, which I'm using here at the moment. You can see it's folded down at the moment. Really lovely drawstring project bag from a viewer, and I'd offered her a couple of my patterns in exchange as a thank you for sending me such a lovely bag. And she said if I would be willing to pass that forward, pay it forward, rather than giving her the patterns, giving it to a couple of you guys. So I opened up a thread in the group for a pattern giveaway, and we had exactly 200 entries. So minus my entry, we had 200 other entries. So just now, before I started filming, I did a random number generator, and I pulled 2 numbers. The first one was 175, in the thread, and that is Jen from Jersey, and that's Jennifer from the US, who I know we chat all the time on Instagram. So, well, congratulations, Jen. And she wanted the Across the Pond shawl, so I will be sending that pattern to you later today. And the next winner was number 90, and that's Truco Tetal, and that's Filomena from Portugal. So congratulations, Filomena. And she wanted the For the Love of Rainbows shawl. So congratulations, and I'll be sending that to you later today. And I think that covers it for the introductory stuff. Podcasts that I want to mention this week. There are quite a few I want to talk about. Sorry if I'm looking off to the side again. My printer is still not working properly, so I'm using my laptop again. And just for you guys, actually, before I get into this, I've had a few people comment before when I mentioned about the show notes last time and asking whether people not even use them. I had a lot of people comment saying that they really liked how detailed my show notes were and all this and that, which is great. I'm glad that you find that useful. And a couple of people, especially a couple of other podcasters, commented saying that they don't know how I find the time to write such detailed show notes. Well, I actually write detailed show notes for myself for podcasting on Word, on like a Word document on my computer. And I write them relatively detailed because usually if I don't, I'll forget to say something that I wanted to talk about. So, and then frankly, I just copy and paste. I copy and paste my show notes into the blog post, and then it's just a matter of getting the links, and that makes it so much quicker than typing everything out again. So yeah, that's a little tip. At least that's how I do it, and that's how I get it done relatively quickly. My show notes take me like 20 minutes because I'm just copy and pasting from Word and then just adding links. So they're basically pre-written, which is why I don't mind doing them, because I do them anyway for myself. So that's my little tip there for you guys. Right, so podcasts that I've been enjoying. The first one I wanted to talk about is Successor with Shannon. I love her podcast. She is so sweet. She's so energetic and bubbly, and just a really fun personality. And there's a lot of things that she talks about that I can relate to. She's not new to knitting. She's known how to knit for years, but she's newly returned to knitting, if that makes sense. Like, she took a break from it, or she was an intermittent knitter. She's originally from Alberta. She lives in Vancouver now, which also means a lot to me because I used to live there myself, and I have a real fondness for Vancouver. And yeah, we've been chatting on Instagram and stuff, and she's relatively new. I think she's only got 4 episodes out at the moment, but she's really fun, and you should definitely go check her out. The second podcast I want to talk about is the Arctic Knitting Podcast, and that's with Amelia in Norway. And yeah, again, love her podcast too. She's so sweet, and recently, end of last summer, she had a baby, her first child, and she's so sweet. Again, we've chatted a lot on Instagram and gotten to know each other quite well through that. And now that she started podcasting, I really enjoyed actually getting to see her and see the knitting projects that she works on. And she talks a bit about her life up in the Arctic, and because she's quite up north in Norway. I think up quite close or in the Arctic Circle, so it's really interesting, a very different way of life than what I'm living, so it's always really interesting to hear about that sort of stuff. And she's knit some really beautiful stranded colourwork projects, like a whole stranded colourwork sweater for her boyfriend and for herself, and it's just really interesting to see and hear about her life. So make sure you check her out too. Again, she's also relatively new. I think she's only got like 6 or 7 episodes at the moment, and I haven't caught her latest. Her latest one came out yesterday, I want to say, yesterday or the day before, and I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. So make sure you go check her out. The third one I wanted to mention is a brand new podcast, and it's only got 1 episode so far, and that is The Grocery Girls Knits. And that's with Jodie and Tracy, and I believe they're in Canada. I'm not sure where in Canada, but I'm pretty sure they are in Canada because they talk a lot about Canadian dyers and stuff. And Jodie is also a bag maker. She's Mrs. Brown's Bags, and you probably will have heard of her and her bags because they've been cropping up on podcasts left, right, and centre. And she does make some really beautiful bags from the looks of it. And yeah, so they started a podcast. They're sisters, if that wasn't clear, if I hadn't mentioned that. They're a couple of sisters, really fun, bubbly personalities, and I love how their interaction with each other as they're talking, they kind of like bounce off each other with their energy, and it's just really a lot of fun. So make sure you go and check them out too. And the next two podcasts I want to talk about are audio podcasts, one of which I've mentioned before, and another one that I really recently started listening to. The first one is the Curious Handmade podcast with Helen, who I met late last year for the first time, and we've been sort of chatting since. And I'm also going to her first retreat that she's hosting at in Cumbria. I think it's called the Cumbria House Retreat, or I always forget what it's called. I just call it the Country House Retreat, but it's the Curious Handmade Cumbria House Retreat, I think. I'm not sure. And this is actually one of Helen's designs. It's the mystery knit along she did last year. It's the Summertide Mystery Cowl, which I knit. It's my first mystery knit along that I ever did. I really liked it, and the reason I chose to do one of Helen's mystery knit alongs is because I love almost all of her designs. I love. There's not been a design that she's come out with that I haven't wanted to knit. So I kind of knew it was almost a safe bet that I would enjoy this one. I've always been reluctant with mystery knit-alongs because I kind of want to know what it's going to look like before I invest all the time and yarn into a project, and then at the end be like, I'm not so fond of that. But I really like this one. You should go knit it. And I really love Helen's podcast. And the reason why I wanted to mention it today, because I have mentioned it a few times before, is not only has Helen been so sweet in mentioning my sock knitting escapades, as it were, a few times on her podcast recently, but also the topic of her podcast recently has been really interesting to me, that the whole idea of appreciating your stash and documenting your stash, which is something that I've been trying to do as well, and which I talked about towards the end of last year. And I need to go through and update the documentation of my stash with all of the new stuff that I've gotten recently. But it's been interesting to hear it from her perspective and her thoughts on stash appreciation and stuff like that. So, and this is also true for the next podcast I mentioned, but I've been trying to get back into my sewing since January ended. And I've sort of I had hit a bit of a block, and it wasn't really working initially, and then finally a couple of days ago I kind of broke through and I got my sewing mojo back, and it was fine. It's all going now. But what I found is, and I think it's partially my laptop that I have an issue with on this one, but I can't seem to get my podcasts don't play back loud enough when I'm watching on YouTube. I can't get the volume loud enough on my laptop to hear it over the sewing machine. There's only a handful of podcasts that actually the video plays back loud enough on YouTube to be able to hear over the sewing machine. So rather than basically missing a whole podcast because I can't hear it, I've switched to audio podcasts whilst I sew. And sorry, there's workers going by outside. So switch to audio podcasts while I sew, and because I can get the volume loud enough on my phone and I can move my phone closer to me. I don't use headphones or earphones when I'm sewing because the cord tends to get in my way, and it's just more of a faff to keep fiddling around with the cord and stuff. So just having something on my phone or whatever helps. And also there's that whole trick of putting your phone in a glass to amplify the volume. If you haven't tried that, you should, because it really works. And so that's what I've been doing. So I finally gotten caught up. I had a couple of episodes of Helen's podcast to catch up with, and you should definitely check her out. And the other podcast I've started listening to is the Knitting Pipeline podcast with Paula. So I'm probably way behind the times on this one because Paula is an amazing podcast and I hear everyone talking about her. But I haven't, because I've not been much of an audio podcast listener before. I'm much more of a visual person. But like I said, I'm starting to listen to more audio podcasts now that I'm sewing again. And I've caught up on the last 5 episodes of Paula's podcast. And again, she's had a very sock-focused few weeks. Well, a few weeks ago, she had a couple of episodes that were quite focused on socks. And it was interesting to hear her thoughts on that as well. And she also had some really lovely things to say about me and my month of sock madness. So yeah, if you haven't checked her out already, which I'm pretty sure you probably already have, if you haven't, make sure you do. And I think that pretty much concludes it for this week in terms of podcasts. That was a lot. I'm going to move on really quickly to finished objects because I only have one for you guys this week, which after the many pairs of socks I've had every week for the last month, it seems like a bit of a disappointment almost. Feels almost like a bit embarrassing to just show you one thing. But yeah, so this is my finished object. It was the Scraptastic Grello hat. There's no design. I kind of just made it up as I went along. And I did a couple of bands of colour work just to sort of practice getting my practice and see how my gauge is doing. It is a little bit tight on there. I mean, it's fine, it fits my head fine. My hair's up in a bun at the moment, so I'm not sure how well this is gonna... Yeah, see, it fits, and then my hair's up in a bun as well. There were a few things I would do differently. I love the massive pom-pom. So this, the pom-pom I made using the large pom-pom maker. Let's see if I can find it. Sorry, it's just right here. This one, so not the jumbo one that I showed you a couple of weeks ago, but the large one is the one I used for the pom-pom on this. And I weighed the hat before I attached the pom-pom, and I believe the hat weighed almost 60 grams and the pom-pom weighs 30. So the pom-pom weighs half as much as the hat in itself. And the hat is made up of scraps that I had left over. So the bottom, the brim, and the two dark stripes in the body is made up of Malabrigo Rios in the glitter colourway. This grey and yellow section here with the colour work is Line Brand LB Collection. I think it's like their premium yarn line in there, and the Angora Merino in a yellow and grey colour, and I can't remember the colourway names. And this section here, this yellow and this grey, this yellow is the Sunset colourway and the grey is Pigeon, and they are leftovers of Malabrigo worsted that I use for my Highland Peaks shawl. And then the pom-pom is just whatever was left. There was not a single bit of the glitter Rios left over. I used every last bit of that. I had enough left at the end of this stripe to just weave in ends. And then, yeah, and I just did some simple crown decreasing, attached a pom-pom. The pom-pom's not the most secure. I wasn't 100% sure if I was going to keep it or not. And the way I attach my pom-poms, when I do make the pom-pom maker, I use crochet cotton to tie it off, because I'm always worried with yarn because I pull it really tight on the knots to make sure it's really secure. And I'm always worried with the yarn that I'm going to rip it or, like, you know, pull it apart. But with crochet cotton, you really can't tear it with your hands. So I can yank it and pull the knots as tight as I want without worrying about it. So then I just weave it in with the crochet cotton, tie a few knots to secure it, and then I don't actually trim the end. Unless I'm gifting this hat to somebody, which I'm not bothered about weaving in the ends. And if I was going to gift it to someone, I would probably tie off the pom-pom with the crochet cotton and then use some yarn to weave it, to like attach it to the hat so I could weave it in. But yeah, that's how it works. Things I would do differently. As you can see, the brim is kind of flaring out a little bit. So I would probably cast on even fewer stitches and then increase for the main body. I think that's what I would do. It's not a tight fitting hat. It's just definitely a nicely fitting hat. It is not too snug. I don't feel any tightness on the band for the colour work, but I can sort of see, the blocking definitely helped, but I can sort of see where it's a little bit tighter in person. And so I knit this on 3.75mm for the brim and 4mm for the body. I wanted quite a tight knit fabric because it is a hat and you don't want it to be too open. So yeah, big pom-pom. I really like it. I like how it's turned out, and this will probably be a hat for me. Right, I'm going to take a quick break here. Right, back here. Sorry about that. What I've actually found before I move on is that if I record in shorter than 20, if I record in like 20 to 30 minute clips, the video imports a lot quicker into my iMovie than if I record the whole podcast in one shot. So I'll probably be cutting every 20 to 30 minutes and coming back, just because it makes the editing process quicker. And also it gives me a chance to take a break if I need to go grab a drink or anything else. So, whips, works in progress. I haven't done anything else on my Cozy Memories blanket, but I will be hopefully in the next couple of weeks adding more to that. I have my shawl design, which is so close to being done. I probably could have finished it yesterday if I hadn't done so much sewing. This is all the yarn I have left. I was always going to have more of the cream left over because there was almost 100 yards more in this skein than in this one. But yeah, so this one was Sparkle Duck, which is a UK dyer in the stained glass colourway. It's on her solo base, which is a single ply merino. This had 360 something meters. It was 400 yards, I remember checking. And I have about 15-ish grams left, so really not that long left to be done. And this is Pearl Soho's line weight in the heirloom white colourway. And this is a light fingering single ply merino. And this has 495-ish yards per 100 grams. So yeah, you can see that this has, like I said, almost 100 yards more than this one. So it's definitely a lighter weight. And this is the progress so far. I'm not going to show you any more than this because I really want to show it to you when it's done. And it will hopefully be done soon. I'm knitting this one on 3.5mm needles, but I do think I'm going to be knitting another version because there are a couple of changes I want to make to this one. But I think I will be switching up to a 4mm needle for the next one. To be honest, gauge doesn't really matter. You could knit the shawl on 3.5 to 4mm range with fingering weight. It just depends how loose and drapey you want it to be. And like with most of my shawls, as long as you enjoy the fabric you're getting out of it, then it's not really a big deal what your gauge is. Yeah. And next work in progress. This is one I haven't actually shown on... oh, sorry, quickly, about the shawl. I wanted to say a massive thank you to everyone who has offered to test knit it for me. I have fulfilled my test knitting requirement for that one. I have more than enough people. I had so many people offer to test knit. It was slightly overwhelming, and I kind of forgot that happened last time I did this. So thank you so much. I have more testers for this shawl than I've ever had for any other design. It was just really hard for me to say no to people. So I really appreciate it. Next project I wanted to show you. This is one that I haven't actually shown on Instagram for a very specific reason I'll explain in a second, but it is another pair of socks. I finally cast on some more socks last week, and because I just couldn't stay away. And this is what they look like so far. I guess I should show it to you this way up. Not that it particularly matters. So cuff down, 2 at a time, my standard. You guys are probably all used to seeing this by now. Oh geez, that was weird. I'm going to show you the colour properly. Sorry, it's washing it out a bit. So we'll get the gist. And so this is Hedgehog Fibres sock yarn in the Vengeance colourway. And yeah, it's 90% superwash merino, 10% nylon. And this is actually really interesting because this is their new base, which is got 400 meters in the put-up, 100 grams. I think their old one only had like 350 meters. But when I weighed the skeins as I was doing them up, I had 110 grams. So super generous, super generous. And this is what it looks like caked up. It's my first time knitting with Hedgehog Fibres, and it's really lovely. I'm knitting it on 2.25mm needles, high sharps, which I really enjoy. And these are going to be socks for my brother. I remember I told you guys that he'd really liked this colourway when I showed it to him in the skein. So I thought I'd make him socks out of it. It's really soft, and I really like the density and the gauge I'm getting on this one. And yeah, I was a little bit concerned about how much pink was in it. I wasn't sure, but I'm a couple of things. One, my brother doesn't really care. I'm pretty sure he wouldn't mind. He has this bright pink t-shirt that he wears all the time, so I'm pretty sure he'll wear socks that have a little bit of pink in them. He's not that funny about it. And I sent a picture to my mum, and she was like, he'll love it. So I'm feeling more confident about it. And if he doesn't like it, it's not the end of the world. I can always knit him another pair of socks. It's not a big deal. yes, so that's that one. Let me see if there was anything else on that one to talk about. Nope. Then I have my, you've seen this one on Instagram, there's another pair of socks. So I cast on 2 pairs of socks last week, and surprisingly, none of them are finished. I am so enjoying the whole not putting pressure on myself to knit on socks at the moment. I'm just enjoying knitting a few rows here and there. I mean, my Hedgehog Fibres one, I cast this on, what was it? I think it was like Friday last week. And I've just been knitting on it a bit every day, just a little bit. This has been my like bedtime knitting, as it were. So just before I go to bed, I knit a few rows. I go to sleep, and then that's it. And I'm more than happy with it. And it's really enjoyable. I'm really just enjoying the process now. Well, after all that, I'm enjoying the yarn as well. I just really want to enjoy that yarn. The next pair of socks that I've got on the needles, which as you guys have seen on Instagram, are my memory socks, which I am knitting using all the scraps from the socks I knit in January. So I'm doing 10 rows per colourway, per stripe. So I'm 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 stripes in. And I sort of split the colourways in half and I'm doing half for each sock, because otherwise 35 stripes is a lot of sock. So 35 pairs divided by 2 is 17 and a half. But as it happened, one of my pairs of socks I used 2 different colourways, so it's kind of like 36 colourways, so I've got an even 18 per sock. So yeah, that's where I am so far. I'm not going to sit here and run through all the colourways again, just because it would take forever. But yeah, really loving it so far. And I still have all my ends to weave in, as you can see. That will be fun. I think once I get to the heel, I'll probably stop before I do the heel and weave in as many of the ends as I can in the leg before I keep going, because then that will reduce the amount of ends I have to do at the end. But yeah, so I'm really enjoying that. This is on 2.5mm Addi Turbo sock rockets. I really like this tip. I'm going to talk a bit more about needles, the sock needles, later in the podcast, because I meant to talk about that last week, but I talked about so many other sock related things I forgot about needles. So yeah, and I've really been enjoying these. Yeah, so I think that covers it for that one. And my last work in progress that's actively on my needles is in my lovely New York Manhattan map print bag that the lovely Therese sent me last week that I showed you. And this is the hoodie shawl cardigan that I talked about by Suzanne Summer. This is what it looks like. I didn't have the pattern printed out last week, I don't think, to show you. And as you can see, it is a very interesting looking cardigan shape. So it has the shawl shaping at the back, which is where you begin, and then you knit the speckled section. Then I believe you do, I can't remember what order it goes in now. I think you do the hood then, and then you come do this grey section, and then you pick up and you do all the edge bits, and it's just very interesting construction, and I'm really enjoying it so far. And so I probably want to start first with talking about gauge. This is the gauge swatch that I did, and yeah, I just want to talk a little bit about gauge here for a quick second, and this is why doing a gauge swatch is really important. So this pattern by Suzanne Summer, the hoodie shawl cardigan, asks you to have a gauge of 24 stitches per 4 inches on size 3.5mm needle, which is a US 4. Then I'm also looking at knitting the featherweight cardigan by Hannah Fettig, and I have yarn set aside, and I'll be talking about that in a second. But that pattern calls for a gauge of 24 stitches per 4 inches on a 4mm, which is a US 6. So this is why gauge swatching is important. People who say, oh, I always get gauge, how can you get the same gauge on 2 different needle sizes using the same weight of yarn? I mean, I know it's possible, potentially, if, technically it's fingering weight, but, there's different thicknesses of fingering weight. But even so, like that in itself, when I was looking at it, I was like, okay, there is, I don't know if you can hear that, but Derek's crying for some reason. I might have to go see if he's okay in a second. He's usually fine, he's just doing it for attention. But that in itself shows how important gauge swatching is, because two different designers of two completely different gauges have the same gauge, on different needle sizes. So you can't be the same as both of them. Anyway, back to this pattern. I was looking through the yardage requirements for yarn and for the design, and because of the way it's constructed, and it's an unfamiliar construction to me, I wasn't 100% confident in messing around with changing the pattern too much. So, and I have made a couple of, one modification, which I'll explain in a bit. But the one thing I could mess around with is gauge. I knew that if I got gauge on the size needles it requested, which I probably would have, I wouldn't have enough yarn to knit my size. I have more than enough of this colorway, which is Macintosh sock in blackcurrant. But I didn't have enough of the other two colorways that I'm using, which, you know what, I'm just going to show you the colorways I'm using. So this is the Downcast Donkey by Verdant Griffin in their Little Traveller base. It's their light fingering. It's 100% superwash merino. I was not impressed with this skein when I was winding it up, because half of it was tangled, so I've had to half skein it. Well, actually mostly got it on the skein, and then I had to hand wind the rest of it on. And this is the Macintosh sock in the blackcurrant. And the last colourway I'm using is Wool and Vine Yarns in Enjoy the Silence, which Kristen gifted me last year when I went to a trunk show. Love this colourway. And I'm not sure how well it's going to come up on camera, but there are definite specks of this colour in that skein. Really fun. So I wasn't going to have enough of these two for the pattern in my size. So I actually went up 2 needle sizes. I went up to a US 6, which is a 4mm. And as you could probably tell, this is quite a loose fabric. Yeah, you can sort of see me through it. There is, I'm getting just over 5 stitches per inch. So I'm getting about 21 stitches over 4 inches versus 24. But the difference in gauge has meant that I can knit the smaller size of this cardigan to get the size that I need to fit me. And by doing that, it means I have enough yarn to do it. So that's one modification that I've made to the pattern. And I'll show you where I am now, and excuse the mass of needles. I'm going to try and avoid it clanging everywhere. So I have started, as you can see, and I've already split for the sleeves. There we go. And okay, so this is the back. You can see the triangular shawl shape happening here. And then that's sort of, there we go. So this is the sleeve section here, and this is the front of the cardigan. I do not know how well this is even being, how well you're even going to be able to see this. There we go. So I did try this on last night actually, and it does fit pretty well. It's a little bit tight at the moment because it's all scrunched up on the needle, so it's hard to see, but it does fit. The arms fit so far, and it looks like it's going to be an okay fit in the end. And for my size, I was supposed to cast on under the sleeve whatever number of stitches. It's a paid for pattern, so I don't want to say anything too much, but I cast on more stitches to get the stitch count. I just sort of did the maths and figured that if I added X number of stitches, that would give me enough stitches to get the size I wanted for me. And so, oh no, that was it, because I'd read some people's comments on this pattern saying the sleeves were quite tight, and I looked at the schematic to see the size of the sleeves, and I was just like, yeah, that's really tight. And I figured out how big the sleeve would be at my different gauge for the size I was knitting, and it was still going to be too tight. And I figured out how many more stitches I needed to add to get it to be right, and it wasn't that many, surprisingly. I only had to add 4 stitches extra to the underarm cast on to get the sleeve to end up being wide enough. And because it's quite a loose gauge, I'm knitting it, like I said, at quite a loose gauge compared to what the pattern is called for. This is going to be a very lightweight drapey cardigan, which is fine. And even though it's a loose gauge, it's not massively like holey. It's not going to be, I guess it's a little bit more holey in the stockinette section, but I really don't mind because it's going to be a lightweight cardigan. I mean, I live in the Middle East. It's very few times of the year. It's not for the long time. It's not a long time either when it gets that cold. And so yeah, I'm really loving, as you can see here, how the colours play together. And so as you can tell, I've started on the sides. There's some short rows to fill in some gaps, and yeah, it's really interesting. And it's been a very quick knit. For those of you who don't know, I think I've talked about this before when I was knitting my dad's sweater, is I use fixed circular needles to hold my sleeve stitches. And then I just sellotape the needle tips together so it's a big loop. And that way they don't poke my knitting and I don't run the risk of it coming out. And it's so much easier to pick up stitches from a needle or a cable than it is to pick up from scrap yarn. It just does my head in. So I've always done it this way. And it also makes it easy to try it on as well because you have all this extra space and you know you can just stick your arm through and try it on as you go. So that's where I am so far. Enjoying it. It's an interesting knit, keeps your attention. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing this grow. Just pop these back in to the bag. And that concludes my finished objects. Sorry, finished objects, works in progress. I concluded my finished objects a while ago. So moving on to needle adjacent projects, I talked to you about wanting to do some simple house slippers for Perry because he's been asking for that, and I'm still planning on doing those. I haven't done them yet because he's not here, and I know they're going to be a really quick project, so I want to do it when he's around so I can try them on his feet and make sure I get the length right. And I'm still working on the other things that I mentioned last week, and the only other thing that I have coming up is my featherweight, which is living in my London print bag, which I love, and I was so gutted I couldn't actually find more of this fabric when I was in New York. And I've searched online and I can't find it anywhere. Nowhere seems to be selling it anymore. So I decided to knit my featherweight out of my stash of Dream in Colour Smooshie, and this is just the regular sock weight, not the one with cashmere. And this is the colourway Dusky Aurora. So this is 100% superwash merino, 450 yards in 4 ounces. Dream in Colour Smooshie. Dusky Aurora. Details. I'm not sure if you get that upside down. That's not helping you. I'm not even sure if you can see that. Usual sock yarn stuff. And this is what it looks like caked up. It's really beautiful. It's very different to anything that I've used before. It's not as sort of bright and vibrant as I usually go for, but I have to be quite honest, the name is what really sold me on this one. And I do love the colourway. It is mostly blue with subtle hints of green and purple in there, which I really love. And I actually picked up 2 skeins of this when I was at Brooklyn General, when I met Kristen for the first time. And I got this when I was with her. So yeah, and I really like how these colours look. And my mum keeps telling me I should wear more blue. So I'm going to have a blue cardigan. And I did a gauge swatch, like I mentioned. And I gauge swatched this on 4.5mm needles, so one size larger than the pattern calls for. Again, I wanted this to be quite a nice drapey sort of cardigan, and it looks quite loose on here, but when it's on it doesn't look particularly loose. It'll be fine. Also, I went up a needle size because it's quite a plump yarn. So yeah, and I'm liking the gauge that I'm getting. I've figured out which size I would need to knit, but I am also thinking of, sorry, Hugo's just come in. I'm also thinking of kind of designing on the fly with this one and not really going with the featherweight pattern. I'm not entirely sure. I have got the pattern already. I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do with that yet, but I may be designing my own cardigan. For me, it wouldn't be a design that I release, I don't think, but who knows? Never say never, I say. And I've also got a skein of Cascade Heritage Silk in colour number 5681. So this is 85% superwash merino, 15% mulberry silk. This was the only neutral I had in my stash, and I checked, that I liked with this colourway. The others were either, the greys just didn't quite work, and I didn't have anything else that would work in a garment. So this is what I have, and this is 900 yards of the Dusky Aurora. I'm pretty sure this isn't going to be enough to make a full cardigan, so I may do something with this to make this work. So we will see. I have not figured out how this is going to happen yet, but this is up and coming as well. I would love to have this cardigan and the hoodie shawl cardigan finished before I go back to London for the retreat, but it is highly unlikely that I'll have 2 cardigans finished, especially since I'm not entirely sure what I'm doing with the second one yet. So we will see. And I'm going to take another quick break here because my nose has gone all sniffly, and I'm going to go sort that out. Alright, so I'm back again now, and I've sort of readjusted myself. I have a few things I have here to show you now. And we'll move on to knit along news. Knit along news, we have the sweater knit along going on, and I've finally jumped in on that one. I am so excited to finally have a project that is a garment on the needles. So yes, there is a finished objects thread and a chatter thread, so make sure you come onto the group and join in the fun. There's a lot of really good support there, and there's been some really good discussion so far about sweaters and yarn choices and blocking, garment construction, all that sort of stuff. So if you're interested in that, make sure you come join us. It is a year-long knit along, and for the first 3 months I am co-hosting with Nessa of the Kilter Craft podcast, and she is also having a garment knit along in her group. So yeah, make sure you come and join us. Sorry, I just need to make note of something here. And yeah, and then the other knit along we have going on at the moment is the Knitting Expat shawl knit along. And so again, finished objects and chatter thread in the group for that one. There are quite a few shawl knit alongs going on at the moment, so make sure you double, triple, quadruple dip wherever you can, because the more the merrier. And yeah, so whips count as long as there's a reasonable amount of work left. It is up to you to decide. I am not going to police this like heavily, but please be fair. It started on the 1st of February and it goes until the end of March, so plenty of time to jump in. And like I said, whips are allowed. You get 1 entry per finished object. If you knit one of my designs, you get 2 entries in the finished object thread per finished shawl. So yeah, a little incentive for you guys there. And what else was I going to say? I have a few prizes to share with you today. I have a very lovely skein of yarn that was donated by a lovely viewer who is Katerina, and she is based out of Germany, and she has an Etsy shop called Liebes, and I will link this in the show notes. And this is 100 grams, 350 meters, superwash merino, single ply, and it's called Wild Poison. It's really beautiful purples, some like dark sort of fuchsia pinks, and then hints of green running through it as well. Really lovely single space, would make a beautiful shawl. And 350 meters, this would make a lovely pairing with another skein yarn. This would be beautiful for like an across the pond shawl, or anything that really makes good use of a variegated yarn. So that's one prize. Thank you so much, Katerina, for your lovely donation, and she also sent me a little something which I will show you later. Then I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to do this as 1 prize or 2 prizes. It depends on the number of entries and whether or not any other donations get to me. I've had a few people contact me about donating prizes for the podcast, which is great, but I have had other people do that in the past and then not send something, so I'm not going to say who or what is being sent as prizes until it gets here and I have it in my hands and I can show it to you. So yeah, oh no, I think I have got 1 prize which is not being sent to me that you choose from their shop, and now I have to go back through my messages and dig out which one that was. I have it saved somewhere. I will tell you about that one next week. But the other ones, I'm waiting until they get here before I tell you about them. So this may be a prize on its own, or it might be combined with the next one. So 3 skeins of Icelandic lopi. This is the einband, which is Icelandic lace weight, effectively. It is, I'd say it's more of a light fingering than anything else. It's 250 meters per 50 grams, so it's 500 meters per 100 grams. Is definitely more of a light fingering than a lace weight. It is a very rustic feeling yarn. This is not what I would consider next to skin soft at all. It does soften up considerably after a conditioner bath. This is a yarn that very much needs conditioner, as it were. But it would make a very beautifully structured shawl, like a stole type. I saw so many lace stoles knit out of this for sale when I was in Iceland, and they are beautiful. Again, like I said, not next to skin soft, but as like a work of art that you wear. It is beautiful, and it holds its shape. It's beautiful for lace. It is amazing for colour work because it's so grippy. And there are a lot of things you could do with what is essentially 750 meters of this yarn. And I picked these 3 together because they would work well for stripes, for colour work, any sort of combination you would like. And depending on how sensitive you are, these could make some really good mittens and stuff like that. So this is going to be a prize. And then that may or may not be combined with this next one, which is Amina makes. This is a large wide project bag in the purple and grey stripes, and you can see why I was thinking about pairing these up together. So we will see. I'm not entirely sure. This will either be a prize on its own or might be combined with the yarn. The next prize, and this is one that I have literally been dreaming about putting together for a long time. So let me just say, when I ordered my yarn from Kristen that I ended up using for my Across the Pond shawl, the Stella Banshee on her single space, which she doesn't stock anymore, I almost knew exactly what that was going to be. I knew it was going to be a shawl. I wasn't 100%, decided on the design, but I knew I was going to use that yarn, and the wool barn yarn that I used for the edging, I pretty much got it around the same time. So as soon as they arrived, I kind of knew that those two were going together. It was just one of those things that I knew those 2 yarns were going together and they were going to be a shawl, and I was pretty sure I was going to design one for it. And then in September, when I went over to New York and I went to Kristen's trunk show, she gave me a skein of yarn to use for a giveaway, which I showed to you guys. And as soon as she gave it to me, I knew exactly what it was going to be for. It was going to be for this. I knew I was going to do this since September, so I'm so excited this is finally going to be a prize. It's a skein of her Stella Banshee on her Blitz base. Comes a little tag, and the reason being, this little prize package is being called the Across the Pond prize package, because I have this skein of yarn from Kristen, and I have this tote bag from Knitty City. This year I believe is their 10th anniversary, so it's knit 10 together. Knitty City bag. So this is the New York or the US side of the pond, as it were, for the prize package. And then the London side, I have one of my, this is like a really large Notions pouch bag, but this was all the fabric I had left of my London print. This, you could knit like a mini skein project out of this, like a little bluebird of happiness, or if you are knitting a cozy memories blanket and you just want to take around a few minis with you to knit on, those will fit in here nicely. And a little box of mints of a London phone booth. And actually these mints are really nice. I've had these mints before. I generally pick these up at the airport on my way back from London. They're really yummy. So this is the Across the Pond prize package, as it were. And this will go to any random winner. You don't have to knit the Across the Pond shawl to be in the drawing to win this prize, if that makes sense. But I had been thinking of doing a specific knit along for the Across the Pond shawl, but that came out right at the end of last year, and then the January sock madness happened. And then I also released the Highland Peaks shawl, so it didn't make sense to just have one knit along just for the Across the Pond and ignoring the Highland Peaks. So that's why I've done the Knitting Expat shawl cowl, because that kind of encompasses both of my latest shawl designs and all previous ones. So I thought that'd be the most fair. So yeah. So those are the 3/4 prizes I have for you guys so far. Like I said, there is one more, and I believe it's a yarn prize. No, I know it's a yarn prize. I just need to get the exact details of it for you guys, and I'll tell you that next week. So those are those. Then next thing I have to talk to you about are questions and answers. So I had a few questions this week. The first one was from Kiss Bobita, that's Bobby. She says, I've been following your sockathon and enjoyed every sock. Thank you. I just started watching podcasts and have watched quite a few of your recommendations. That's great. And she says, as an old knitter, it's interesting to see that you are all using the Fish Lips Kiss Heel and knitting gussetless socks. My question is why? Is it because most of the yarn is self-striping? Does it fit better than the old gusseted slip stitch heel? Is it faster to knit, or is it just a new trend? Okay, so my answer to that is because for me personally, I can't speak for everyone else, but for me personally, the Fish Lips Kiss Heel fits fine. I find that if I need to, I can always add a couple of stitches before I start the heel because I knit my socks top down if I need a little bit of extra space, and that usually works fine. I don't find it fits any better or worse than a gusseted heel. I have knit both types. I knit 2 at a time socks, and whilst you can do a heel flap and gusset on 2 at a time socks, it is more tricky. I find that to do it properly, you need to split the socks when you get to the heel to do that, and the gusset decreases before putting them back onto the same needle again, which is just fiddly for me. I'm not a fan of fiddly. Actually, I don't mind fiddly, it's just I don't like the heel enough to go through that every time. I am a fan of streamlined knitting and efficient knitting, if that makes sense. So I prefer the Fish Lips Kiss Heel because I can do it 2 at a time. It doesn't involve faffing around with my needles too much. It is good with self-striping yarn. It is definitely a good alternative. It is easy to do a contrasting heel. I don't know if you saw him back there. Hugo is investigating. Let's see if I can grab him. And yeah, I enjoy it. I definitely think there is a bit of a trend at the moment with it. Say hi, Hugo. Yee, belly. I think there has definitely been a trend with it lately, but I think for good reason. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. And I do find it quite fast to knit, to be honest. I've definitely gotten my Fish Lips Kiss Heel down pretty quick. I can, depending on the number of stitches on the needle, it takes me anywhere from 20 minutes to half an hour to do one sock, which is really quick. Yeah. And let me see if I can tilt the camera a little bit so you can see Hugo more. Yeah, so I hope that answers your question. The next one is from Mansnini on Ravelry, and that's Nicole. She said, you said that you went to Saudi Arabia. I really would like to know if you had to wear a headscarf, burqa, or something like that. Thank you. I've talked about this previously on the podcast, but it's quite a while ago now, so I'll answer this one again. When I go to Saudi Arabia, I have to wear what is called an abaya, which is a long black gown-ish type, which you probably will recognise if you see it. But I don't have to cover my hair. I do take the headscarf that comes with the abaya as like a matching set. It's all black. It's just the same fabric. I do take both. I do take the headscarf and I just wear it around my neck, kind of like how I'm wearing the shawl. Just in case. I don't need to wear it. Most women there don't, unless they are religious, I guess. I've seen quite a few foreigners over there who don't wear them. They don't even have them around their neck. They just don't wear them, and it's fine unless you're going somewhere official, somewhere government orientated or whatever. They don't really mind you not wearing it. But I look somewhat like a local person when I'm dressed in the abaya, enough so that I do wear the headscarf around my neck just in case someone does say something. But otherwise, I've never really had any issues being there. I've not had any negative experiences, let's put it that way. But I haven't really been there that often anyway. I mean, I've not been there often enough to have had any negative experiences, but it's been okay so far. Then the next question is from Tiffany P89, who's Tiffany on Ravelry, and she says, sorry if you've already answered this question, but you talked about hand washing your socks. I was just curious, how do you go about washing your socks? What sort of wash or rinses do you use? And how long do you have them soak? Well, I tend to wash my socks in wool wash, whatever I happen to have. I can't really get wool washes over here, so it's whenever I go back to the UK or to the US, I usually pick up some wool wash. I'm at the moment I'm using unscented Eucalan. If I travel and I don't have wool wash with me, I just use soap, whatever soap I have at hand, or shampoo. I kind of figure if it goes on my hair and it's fine, then it's fine for socks, like for wool socks. I'm not overly aggressive with my socks. If I'm using soap, I tend to just gently wash it into the sock and then rinse it out, and then that's it. If I'm using a wool wash, I fill the sink with lukewarm water and leave them to soak. If I know that they are socks that run, I will wash them on their own. But yeah, I don't do anything special with my socks. If I leave them to soak, I soak them for as long as I remember to soak them. Sometimes that's half an hour, sometimes it could be longer if I forget about them. I don't really do anything special, is what I'm trying to get at. It's just I just wash my socks. And I've had no real issue with using soap or using wool wash. I just use whatever I have at hand, to be honest. It seems to work fine. They're clean, they smell clean. They are pretty much always covered in cat fur, so I don't stress about that too much. My life is covered in cat fur. So I've given up trying to fight that battle. It just is. The last question I have to answer is from Anita Mum, and Teresa, hi, she says, I'd like to know how you learn techniques living where you live. Is it all books or online/YouTube? Do you take classes when you're in London? There is no local yarn store where I live, and I taught myself how to knit socks from books and YouTube. I pretty much taught myself everything I know about knitting. I mean, that's not entirely true. I taught myself how to knit, let's put it that way. I didn't teach myself everything I know about knitting. I taught myself how to knit. I learned a lot from other people, from YouTube, from podcasters, from my friends who knit. But in terms of getting started and having the impetus to learn to knit, that was all me. I taught myself. YouTube has basically been my teacher. I taught myself how to knit socks. I've obviously gotten tips and help from friends and things along the way, and podcasters and stuff. But the actual learning of techniques I've always pretty much done on my own. I've never done a knitting class. I've never taken a class. Because I think it's one of those things that because I've taught myself how to do it and never felt the need to take a class, I think there are very few things with knitting that I would be willing to pay someone to teach me how to do. Because, like I said, I've been very sort of like self-instigating on the whole knitting thing that I learn by doing, if that makes sense. So I kind of learn how to do things by just doing them rather than having someone tell me how to do it. But I think if I ever took up spinning, I would probably want to take a class for that. I don't know what it is about spinning that I feel like I would benefit a lot from having someone show me how to do it. Whereas with knitting, I kind of feel like I could figure it out for myself. And I don't know what it is about the two different things, but that's just how I feel about it. And that's not to say that I'll never take a class. It's just, like I said, there are a few things that I feel like I want to take a class for. And that's not to say anything against anyone who does want to take classes for knitting. There are different people who learn in different ways. I've always been very much a self-instigated learner, even at school. I've always preferred the projects where you have to do research and self-teach, as it were, a topic rather than being in classes and stuff like that. Anyway, I hope that answers your question. I just want to talk really quickly here about my favourite things with knitting and stuff like that, because I was thinking about this the other day, And one of my favourite things, well, some of my favourite things to do with knitting is, same as most people, I'd imagine. It's like buying yarn, dreaming up projects to knit out of that yarn, the actual knitting, and at the end getting the finished object. Those are my favourite things to do with knitting. My least favourite thing to do with knitting is updating my Ravelry projects page. I absolutely loathe doing that. It's like in my mind it's like a necessary evil that has to be done. I guess it doesn't have to be done, but if you want to take part in the online community, take part in knit-alongs, and it's a good way to keep track of all your projects. So in my mind, it's a necessary evil. I kind of feel like it takes up so much time to update your Ravelry projects page, but that I would rather spend knitting, if that makes sense. So I have 35 pairs of socks to update on my Ravelry projects, and it's going to take me so long to do it. But my awesome friend Josie, I posted about this on Instagram this last week, and my awesome friend Josie volunteered to update my projects page because apparently she likes doing that sort of thing, which I find absolutely crazy. But if she wants to do it, all power to her, and thank you so much, Josie. I owe you at least a coffee, if not lunch, for that. And Josie, who I've mentioned several times on the podcast in the past, she lives in Dubai. She's someone who I met through my knitting group over there. She's amazing. She's a really great friend. She's been knitting for years and years and years. And yeah, she's also an indie dyer. She dyes yarn as Dubai Knits online. And yeah, she dyes some really beautiful yarn as well. So, yeah. So my question for you guys this week is, what is the thing you enjoy the most about knitting or crafting or whatever your craft of choice is? What is the thing you enjoy most about that craft? And what is the thing you enjoy least? Curious, what are your favourite and least favourite things to do with knitting? By the way, I'm not even bothering with the stash pages on Ravelry. No, too much time and definitely not worth it for me. And I've just realised I've completely forgotten to talk about something. So I am going to come right back. I realised I completely forgot to talk about the expat yarn swap in the knit along section. Right, okay, so I am hosting my first ever swap in the group, and I am so excited that you guys are so excited about this as well. I have started, I've opened up a thread in the Ravelry group for the expat yarn swap, and I talked about the premise for this swap in last week's episode. So the idea is hopefully to match up as many people as possible internationally for those who are willing to do international, and to get you guys to swap yarn from where you are. So, for example, if I match someone up from the US to someone from, say, Germany, you pick a dyer from your country, preferably. Pick a dyer from your country or a yarn producer from your country, preferably someone who is local to you if you have someone local to you who does dye or make yarn or something along those lines. Or if you're a dyer, you can't get more local than yourself, can you? So you guys could swap. So people who live across the world from each other can try out something that they may not have actually had a chance to try out otherwise. So, for example, I can't think of an example right now off the top of my head. But anyway, that's the general gist, and there are a few people who have indicated that they do not want to do international shipping, and that is fine. Wherever I can, I will accommodate that. And wherever I can, then, for example, if it's within the US, then I will try and match you with someone who's on the complete opposite side of the country from you, so you can try and swap local stuff. And anyway, so I have all the details for that in the thread on the group, so make sure you go and check that out. There is a link to a Google form where you can sign up, and all I ask for on the form is your name, your Ravelry name, the country where you live, and the city, and whether or not you want to ship international, or whether or not you can accommodate international shipping. Because I'm not asking for addresses or phone numbers or any other sort of personal information. This is just enough information for me to be able to match you up with your partner. I will put a post where I will partner people up, and then it will be up to you and your partner to get in touch with each other and exchange addresses, confirm like details of what you're going to include in your packages and all that sort of stuff. So I am not mining data or anything like that from you guys. So far, we have over 170 people who have signed up, which is insane. This is going to take me forever, but I'm going to love doing it. From over 20 countries. I think we have like 22 countries now on the list. We've got 5 out of the 7 continents covered. We are missing Africa. No, we've got Africa now. We're missing South America and Antarctica. I'm not sure we're going to get anyone from Antarctica, but I know we have a few people from South America in the group or who watch the podcast. So if you want to take part, come join in. It'll be really fun to have people from all over the world take part in this. Sign-ups are open until the 20th of February. I probably won't close the thread until the morning of the 21st, my time, which will be close to midnight US time, to give you as much time as possible for you guys who want to sign up. There's another reason for that as well, which I'll come to later. But yeah, I'm really excited about it. And then following the yarn swap, we're going to have an expat yarn knit along, where the idea is to knit with yarn that's not local to you. And you don't have to, but the idea is if you want to, you can use the yarn you receive in the swap, and otherwise you can use whatever yarn you want. You don't have to be part of the swap to take part in the knit along. Anyone can take part. And yeah, so that's generally the gist of that one, and I'm so excited about it. I have been dreaming up ideas of things that I might want to send to my swap partner, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. So I hope you guys are as well. And if you are, make sure you come and sign up. It's been really fun. I've been going through the list and I've been recognising names, people who have been really chatty in the threads in our group, and people who I've chatted to on Instagram, and other podcasters who I recognise the names have cropped up and stuff. So it's been really fun to see everyone's names come in for that one. Yeah, so moving on to other things. I've already talked about the Curious Handmade retreat coming up in March, which I'm going back to the UK for. So excited now. It's literally a month away almost, and I am so excited. And the other event that I'm coming back, that I will be in the UK for, I'm not coming back specifically for this event, but I happen to be back in the UK around that time, is Fibre East in the summer. Fingers crossed, all being well, I will be going to Fibre East this year. My sister-in-law's wedding is the weekend before Fibre East, so I know I'm going to be back in the UK for that. And my plans for the summer aren't quite set yet, but I have 2 weddings, which I may have talked about before, that I'm going to in the summer. One is my sister-in-law's wedding towards the end of July, and then one of my best friends is getting married towards the end of August. They're pretty much exactly a month apart from each other. And then I also have my best friends, one of my best friends anyway, her hen party is in between the 2. So, and then there's obviously Fibre East. So fingers crossed, if all being well, I will probably be back in the UK for about 5 weeks over the summer, depending on how things go. It's not 100% certain yet, but financially it would make so much more sense for me to just stay in the UK between the 2 weddings than to fly back and forth. So all being well, if that works out, then I will be at Fibre East this summer. But like I said, nothing is definite at the moment. So once things are more finalised, I will be sure to let you guys know. Shop news, there is no shop news at the moment. I have been working crazily to get bags back up into the shop. I am making good progress, better progress than I had been previously, which was 0. I have quite a few things I still want to get done. I'm hoping to have a small shop update before the end of the month. Jeez, I hope I have more than one update before the end of the year. Before the end of the month, I have something coming up in a couple of weeks, which is throwing a bit of a spanner in the works. But fingers crossed, all being well, it'll be fine. I keep saying that all the time now, aren't I? Sorry about that. Yeah, okay. So I think we will move on to acquisitions. And I'm going to start with this one because it's right here next to me and there's Hugo on my lap. And he never sits on my lap, so I'm loving this right now. I've mentioned that my boys aren't lap cats. They really aren't. This is the longest one of them has ever stayed on my lap before, so I am totally loving this right now, which is probably why I have this massive grin on my face. I'm such a doofus. Anyway, I think they miss Perry because Perry's been away this week. I'll talk more about that later, but Hugo doesn't sit on my lap usually, but he loves to sit on Perry's lap. And Perry's not here, so he's sitting on my lap. Anyway, so cat fluff everywhere. So Katrina, who is lead base on Etsy, she sent the yarn donation for the Knit Along prize. She also sent a skein for me. How gorgeous is that? This is her, also on the same base, 100% superwash merinos, 350 meters in 100 grams, single base. This is Crazy Purple, and I absolutely love that colourway. It is so pretty. It's so my colours as well. I love it. What do you think, Hugo? She also sent along some tea. Thank you so much, Katrina. There was a little lollipop in there, which I will be digging into later. And she also sent some lovely minis. And I think someone told her that I like purple. Thank you so much, Katharina. Sorry, getting names all mixed up. And then I can reach around Hugo here without getting moved. There we go. I have a bag of other acquisitions to show you from Vogue Knitting Live and just general other things, a couple of other things. So I would have originally taken all of this out of the bag before showing you, but because I've got Hugo on my lap, I don't want to disturb him too much. So I apologise for the crinkling that's going to happen. So the first thing, I think I'm going to scare him off. Yeah, he's off. And now you can't see this, which is probably a good thing, but my lap is covered in cat fur. All right, so told you it just never lasts. First thing I have to show you is something that I actually ordered before the new year. So does this count? But it didn't arrive until the new year. So does this count as last year's stash or this year's stash? I am not sure. Probably counts as this year's stash. Anyway, so I placed a custom order with Vicky of Bear and Voller, and I've told you guys so much already about how much I love her yarn. Making sure I got everything out of the bag. Yes, that's fine. And I ordered 4 skeins of her Barefoot base, which is her really lovely sock yarn that I love, in the Foggy Morning colourway. This is Barefoot sock, 100 grams, 400 meters, 80% merino wool, 20% polyamide. So it's her sock base, and I just really like these colours. Again, they are probably a lot softer than I would usually go for compared to my. Sorry, I keep cutting my head off. I'm trying to sit up straight, but I keep cutting my head off. But I really liked the name Foggy Morning. Having grown up in London, we had a fair few of those. And I just really like that yellow that runs through, and there's some hints of sort of like a red, blues and greens, and it sort of runs into purple every now and again. I just really like the combination of colours. There is not a single colour in this skein that I do not like. I really like it. And I think these 3 together will make a really awesome variegated cardigan of some kind. I have not figured out what this will be, but it will be some kind of cardigan, I think. I think it has to be some kind of garment. Of some sort. Like I said, not 100% sure what it will be yet, but I am excited to make something out of it. The next thing I have is another order I placed, I guess, sort of placed, prior or around the new year, but I got it when I went to Vogue Knitting Live. And that was a Wool&Vine order, of course. And Kristen so sweetly put my name on there, even though she gave it to me in person. And so I placed an order. I placed an order for some of her Christmas colourways, actually, even though it was way past Christmas. So 1 second. I realise I haven't actually opened them yet from the package since Kristen gave them to me. But, yes, so Wool&Vine yarns. if you don't already know, which you probably do. Cute little snowflake stitch marker, and all the details on the back. And Kristen obviously has the Yarngasm podcast. So I ordered 2 of her special snowflake on the Volca base, which is 80-10-10 superwash merino cashmere nylon. Again, really loving the blues lately, it seems. Again, really love this colourway. Beautiful rich shades of blues with greens and some lighter bits in there. Again, really love it. And my mum keeps telling me I should wear more blue, so I'm trying to go with that theme. Really, really like it. It's so soft and so squishy. Super squishes. And I also asked for, but Kristen kindly gifted this skein to me, of her Deck the Halls on her footsie base, which she knows I love. I knit my Outlander socks on her footsie base, and I love how those have turned out. So these are going to be a really, really fun pair of socks. And I don't care that they're Christmas themed. I will knit them even though it's not Christmas, or I might wait and knit them next Christmas. I haven't fully decided yet. Anyway, so these 3 beauties. Love them. Really, really like them. And my stash of Woollenvine yarn was 0 up until this, because I'd used it all. And the last few things I have to show you, I picked up at the Stephen B booth in Vogue Knitting Live. First one being, actually 2 of them are the same as that Eric got. First one was this one, which is a collaboration for Stephen B by the Wild Hair Fibre Studio, Minneapolis. And this is the Pinnacle Fingering Sock. It's 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon. And this is the colourway. These are the droids you're looking for. So it's a Star Wars theme. This has to be by far the most expensive yarn I've ever paid for in terms of like a single skein of 100 gram sock yarn. Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking, but I just really love the Star Wars theme, and yes, this will be a very special pair of socks, I think. And the other one I got, which Eric picked up, but I had to go back and get it later, was 3 Irish Girls for Stephen B. This is an exclusive for Stephen B. in their Springvale sock, 100% superwash merino wool. And the colourway is Trust Me, I'm the Doctor. Because how could I not? How beautiful is that? I love this colourway. And you know, I mentioned my friend Josie, who is being awesome and also dyes yarn. Well, she's actually too busy and does not watch my podcast, which is probably a good thing, because if she saw I got this, she would probably kill me. Yeah. How beautiful is that? I really love those colours. And the last one I picked up from there is by Black Trillium Fibres. And this is their Pebble Sock base. It's 100% superwash merino, but it's quite a high twist. 100 grams is 380 yards. And this is the Hedwig colourway, which I really loved. I love the speckled sort of browns and creams, and really, really beautiful. Love those colours. And it's Hedwig, it's Harry Potter, how could I not? So I basically covered all the fandoms. So you got Harry Potter, Doctor Who, Star Wars. Not all of them, but the major ones. And that is it for the acquisitions segment for this week. And I'm going to take a quick break and get rid of all the pile of yarn on my table and come back. Right, so I'm back again, and I want to talk to you quickly about my thoughts on sock needles. So I've used and have a variety of sock needles that I have and used for a long time. I started, for the longest time, knit with Knit Pro Symphony wooden needles, and so this is 2.25. I have 2 pairs of this and 1 pair in 2.5mm, and for most of last year this is what I knit my socks on. Yeah, I almost exclusively knit on these for up until about October, I'd say. October, November last year on these needles. Because when I first started knitting, I had knitting socks. I got this pair of Addy Lace needles when I was in Addy Lace Premium when I was in Iceland. in December of 2014. I'd already cast on my first pair of socks by then, but then I picked up this, which is 2.5mm, and I picked up a 2mm set, and I knit my next pair of socks on the 2mm ones, which were the watermelon socks. It killed my hands. I knit a pair of socks on this as well, and whenever I used the metal needles, it just hurt my hands so much. So I put metal away for a long while, and for most of last year I used wooden, and I found I could knit faster with them, that my stitches didn't slip off as often, and it didn't hurt my hands as much. And then I'd heard so much stuff about the hires and chiagus and other sort of wooden metal needles, and the carbons and stuff as well, that I really wanted to try out these other needles and see how it worked. So when I was in Alexandria, I picked up 2 sets of the 2.25 in the high sharps, and I picked up a set of the chiagus in 2.5mm to try these out, and I loved them. And then I switched to knitting all my socks on these needles, and like I said, I loved them. And then when I was back in the UK, I picked up the 2.75 of the chiagus as well for pants croy socks, which are thicker. I could definitely use a US 2 for that. So like I said, I'm knitting all my socks on these. And then recently when we were in the US, I picked up some more high sharps from Vogue Knitting Live. I picked up another 2.25 and a 2.5mm. And I have to say, I actually think the tip on the 2.5mm is sharper than the 2.25. Just my thoughts. Actually, my experience with these needles. I picked up a set of the 2.25s in the carbons, and like I said before when I showed these to you, I actually took them out of the packaging and checked them in the shop before I purchased them, because the first couple that I opened up had snags on the joints and I didn't like. These ones are smooth. I haven't knit enough pairs of socks with these yet to be 100% convinced about them. I don't mind them, I'm just not sure I'm 100% in love with them yet. But verdict is still out on those. I also picked up a set of Addi Turbo sock rockets in the 2.5mm, which is what I am knitting my scrap socks on at the moment, and I'm really enjoying them. These I find are very smooth, they're very lightweight compared to the hires. They're not sharp, but they're a good all-rounder. If you have a particularly splitty yarn, these are good, these tips are good. But for the most part, I love using the hires. I think if I had to pick my favourite, it would be the hires, but my favourite for splitty yarn is the Addi Turbos. I pretty much never use these anymore. I carry them with me all the time when I travel, because I figure, one, it's always good to have a spare set of needles in case I get stopped by security and they take away my metal needles. I can transfer my socks onto wooden ones. And if I'm working on a sweater or on a project where I need a stitch holder or something to put stitches on, I can always use one of these to hold stitches. So that's a quick rundown of my thoughts on sock needles. Obviously the high sharps are the sharpest. Chiagus are pretty sharp and work really well. The chiagu lace, which I use for the socks, are really good. And like I said, then the turbo and carbons, I'd say they're probably about as sharp as each other. They work really well. All of these work well as socks, to be honest. Even the wooden ones work fine. I just prefer the speed, obviously, of the metal needles now. And I store all my sock needles in this little notions pouch. It's a notions pouch, but I store my sock needles upright in there. And I have a couple of little pins on here. Little sheepy, and this one from Amber. So yeah, I think that covers it in terms of the sock needles that I wanted to talk about. So I'm going to move on to my week in review, and there really isn't a massive amount to tell you this week. I do have a couple of things to share. So first off, it's been a pretty busy week, but a good kind of busy. I've been getting back to the sewing, and I've been getting some knitting done on design work and things like that. So I'm having a good week. Perry left for London Thursday night last week. I drove him to the airport, which was quite sad because I actually thought he was leaving Friday morning, but he told me he was leaving Thursday night. So I was like, So he's gone for
He's halfway through his trip now. He'll be gone for a total of 10 days by the time he gets back. So it's been 5 days already. He's got another 5 days before he comes home, and he actually gets back quite late on Valentine's Day, next Sunday. Or this coming Sunday. So we're not really getting to spend Valentine's Day together, which is, I guess, not the end of the world. We don't really do much for Valentine's Day. We don't make a big deal of it or anything. But it's quite funny. I was thinking about this the other day. I think it was the first Valentine's Day we spent together. I went round to his place, and back then he did all the cooking because, I was still living at home, so whenever I'd go around to visit him, we'd be at his place. So he always ended up cooking. I was pretty sure his kitchen hated me, let's put it that way. I was pretty sure his kitchen had it out for me. And it became all the more clear this particular Valentine's Day. I'd gone through all the effort, I'd gotten some really good fish, and my dad had a restaurant back then, so I'd got some really nice cuts of fish from my dad, and I was going to cook dinner, and I had everything all planned out. So I was around his place and I was cooking dinner, and the apartment he was renting with his friend had this really old stove in it. And it was one of those standalone stovetop oven things. It was one of those ones that had the grill on top. So you have the hob and you have the oven underneath, but then the grill is above. It's got this piece that comes out over the top, and the grill is up top. So I can't remember what it was I was grilling, but I had to grill something. So that went into the top bit, and I was doing something in a frying pan on the stove top. But this oven hob stove thing was so old that the grill section wasn't quite level, and I must have not put the tray in correctly, or something was not quite right. But at one point it was sliding out at me, and I was stood right there, and this hot tray was coming at my face. So I basically just scream, jump back, this thing clatters down, it catches the edge of the frying pan as it comes down, the frying pan goes everywhere, fish all over the floor, and I was just I just slumped against the wall. I was on the floor sobbing. I was like, oh, your kitchen hates me. Honestly, I thought it was out to get me. It was not good. And Perry just sort of looks at me and is like, should we just order pizza? And I was like, okay. So we just ordered pizza that night in the end. So yeah, I've never really tried to make an effort ever since, because it's just never worked out all that well. But even so, it has been hard not having him around this week. I've been traveling with him every time he's gone for the last 3 or 4 months. So it's weird not going with him this time. And he'll be gone for 2 weekends this time. Usually he's only gone for 1. This time he went back a couple of days earlier so he could go spend some time with his family, which is absolutely fine. I totally get that. He doesn't really get to spend much time with them when he goes back normally, because he's not there long enough. So it was nice for him to go hang out with his family, and yeah. So then that was good for him. And my first batch of hand-knit socks from January made it to their new homes, and my parents-in-law and sister-in-law and her fiance all love their socks. And I need to actually go out and get more zips. I haven't quite finished the batch of bags I'm working on, but I have a batch already cut up, ready to go, that needs zippers. And I have more bags that I'll be cutting out fabric for soon, and need to go get zippers for those too. The boys have been pretty sweet this week. They've been very adorable, quite needy at times, but I think they also miss Perry. They've been quite snuggly and things at times, and it's just been nice. There've been a lot more photos of the boys on Instagram this last week, if you may have noticed. And we had something that came up actually towards the end of last week, just before Perry went away. And it's not something I'm really going to go into much detail about, because it's not really relevant to the podcast or anything. But suffice to say that as a result of this thing, we are going to Dubai. Not this weekend, obviously. Perry's not here. Next weekend. And so we're just going for Friday and Saturday, which is the weekend over here. And yeah, I'm so excited. It is the first time we will be back in Dubai together. It's the two of us at the same time, when we're not just transiting. We moved to Bahrain a year ago on the 16th of February. So next Tuesday will be 1 year since we moved to Bahrain. And this will be the first time we have gone back together, pretty much exactly a year later. Which will be fun. I'm really looking forward to it. We're going to be catching up with some of our friends. One of our friends actually, my friend Steph, who I've mentioned a few times before on the podcast, her birthday, her husband's birthday, and her youngest daughter's birthday are all in February. So when I messaged her to say that we were coming back that weekend and if they were free on the Friday to catch up, but apparently they're having a big birthday party to celebrate all 3 birthdays that Friday. So we are going back just in time. And so we're going to pop over to theirs and celebrate with them for a little bit and catch up with them. And I'm so looking forward to seeing them. I haven't seen Steph since June of last year when I was last in Dubai. And if you saw that episode, you'll have seen the baby because I was looking after her that day. And she's now 1. Can you believe I can't believe she's grown so much. I keep seeing her pictures on Facebook and stuff. I'm like, I can't believe she's gotten so big. So I'm really looking forward to seeing them. And to top it all off, I guess the icing on the cake is I am finally going to be back in Dubai for one of my knit group meetups on the Saturday. They meet up, the Dubai knitters as it were. They meet up every couple of weeks, and so twice a month. Once it's on a Friday and once on a Saturday to kind of accommodate people who can do different days. And I haven't been back in Dubai over a weekend since June of last year. I've always been back midweek. I've never stayed for the weekend. And so this is the first time I'm going to be back for a weekend. And it's one of the weekends where they're having a meetup. So I'm going. Saturday, I'm going to be with my knitting friends and just enjoying to catch up with them. And I just can't wait to see everybody and just hang out and just see what everyone's been up to because I've missed them all so much. Really looking forward to it. And Perry and I are, most of you guys who are in the US are probably going to think that we're crazy, but we really miss the Cheesecake Factory. There's 3 cheesecake factories now in Dubai, and I remember when the first one opened a couple of years ago. It was madness in Dubai when the Cheesecake Factory opened. You literally could not get a table in that restaurant. The first one that opened was in Dubai Mall, and I remember when it first opened, it was like 2 to 3 hour wait to get a table, and they didn't take reservations, so you'd have to go and wait for 2 or 3 hours to get a table. So we waited. We didn't wait to get a table. Let me put it that way. No, we waited a few months before we finally went. And I'd been in the US years before when first time when I was 16 or something. I'd been before to the Cheesecake Factory. And so we always really enjoyed it. We didn't go very often. It was always a special treat to go to the Cheesecake Factory, and we used to go with guests and stuff, and because it is a ridiculous amount of food. And but yeah, I've always loved it. Always loved going there. And then a couple more have opened up since, and one opened up along the beach near where we lived. So it'd be really nice to go for a stroll down there with friends, or when people were over, and we'd go there for breakfast sometimes. So as soon as we sort of were talking about what we were going to do for the weekend and things, and then suddenly when I was talking to Perry, and you could see the thought come into his head, and his face just changed. He was like, "Oh, Cheesecake Factory." So it was slightly weird like that, I think, but who cares, right? So yeah. Anyway, really looking forward to that. I think that pretty much covers it for this week. Hopefully not another super long episode, I don't think. But thank you so much for joining me. For those of you who have volunteered to test my new pattern for me, thank you so much. That will be coming out to you guys hopefully by the end of this week, in the next couple of days, to get you started on it. And I'm so excited. I am so excited for going to Dubai in a couple of weeks. I just can't wait. And for that reason, actually, this is what I was going to say. I was hoping to do a shop update on the 19th, on that Friday, but because I'm going to be in Dubai, I'm not sure it's going to be ready in time. So what I will probably do is I'll probably do a shop update either on the Monday or Tuesday when I get back from Dubai. So probably around sometime between the 21st and the 23rd of February, probably the 22nd or 23rd, because I also need to sort out the swap partners for the expat yarn swap. So yes, I think that's probably what I'm going to aim for, is a shop update on the 22nd/23rd of February. Yes. I hope that's okay for you guys. I hope that will work out for you. And I will remind you obviously next week as well. And hopefully next week I will have some bags to show you, which will be great. Yes, so thank you again so much for taking the time to join me today. I always enjoy filming every week, and I hope to see you guys next week. Have a happy week, happy knitting, and yeah, I look forward to chatting with you guys on Instagram and in the Ravelry group. So take care. Bye.